You did pop up in this like post-credit thing in Morbius. Did you know what was even happening, what it was leading
No,
to? What
no idea. None. Zero. And even they couldn't quite explain it. He couldn't, he said, look, let me just kind of tell you. And I go, okay, I really don't quite know what you're talking about, or even who some of these people are. But it was complicated because they were, obviously looking down the road and said, here's how it's going to work. And I go, okay, I'm in.
Prepare your ears, humans. Happy, sad, confused begins now.
I'm Josh Horowitz, and today on Happy, Sad, Confused, he's Batman, he's Beetlejuice, he's one of our best dramatic and comedic actors. I don't know what it is to love movies without him in my life. He is back directing himself alongside James Marsden, Marsha Gay Harden, and the equally iconic Al Pacino in KNOX Goes Away. And most importantly, he's back on the podcast after nearly a decade away. Hold for applause. It's the one and only Mr. Michael Keaton. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you. And I apologize for breaking your Birdman figure.
I mean, I have a one of a kind. The last
No
time
way.
Michael was
True?
well, last time Michael was in my office, he decided you didn't actively break it, but you did by manhandling it. You're too strong for your own good.
Oh my God. My manhandling. I'm so sorry. Gee. Oh, was it just examining? I didn't get angry and break it off.
No. You didn't storm off. It was all good. Don't worry.
But
Congratulations, man, on the film. We're going to talk about Knox Goes Away, your directing career. This is your second effort, and all the directors you've talked to over the years. I do want to mention, like, the last time we did chat at length was for Birdman, and when I think of that time period, I mean, that set you off. Like the next 2 years, I feel like you were on the award circuit between Birdman and Spotlight. Like, what are your memories of that 18 months, that 2 years of when it felt like everyone rediscovered why you were so awesome? Was that exhausting? Was it invigorating? What?
yeah, that's a really good question. It was invigorating mostly, I think. And yeah, I guess it's exhausting to some degree, but it was mostly, if I had to pick between the two, it was mostly invigorating. And then just before uh Knox was also in the middle of trying to think three other things. Project I did called Goodrich and the second Beetlejuice. So by the time I got to Beetlejuice, and we can talk a little bit about that later,
Sure.
but that was I wish I could have used about another couple of months to kind of gear up and sleep, frankly, and get ready because the last few years have been real busy. And then on the side, I'm rebuilding a house and everything, so that takes up a lot of time. But yeah, mostly it was really fun and invigorating, and I was with a great group of people, and I loved both those projects. And yeah,
It's fun. I mean, it's funny because like I'm old enough to remember the last time Michael Keaton directed a movie about a hitman. I was at Sundance back in 2008, and I saw The Merry Gentleman, and I know that was a fraught production. That was an unusual circumstance, both in. I'm trying to, be diplomatic about the making of it and the post,
yeah.
etc.
Oh, it's a great
Um,
story, actually. We don't
yeah,
go too long on it today, but I always thought it was so nuts that it was probably worthy of some little article somewhere, because it was as crazy as it was, it's funny too. The story's actually really funny and how it all came together and that that whole story. But it was kind of great though, it makes for a great story actually. And the fact that we pulled off a really nice little movie with Kelly MacDonald, the great Kelly
sure.
MacDonald, great she was in that. Yeah.
So coming off of that, I mean, I was looking back at even at conversations you were having in support of that movie back then, and you were talking about wanting to get back into the director's chair even then.
Yeah.
You'd mentioned working with Nick Nolte on something.
Yeah.
Um, how tough has it been? Like, I mean, has it just been that the acting was so fruitful, or was it tough to just get the financing, find the right project, get all the ships aligned for another directing effort? What happened?
No, it was the first. It was a combination of that, what you just said, there wasn't any time really. I was working. Um, and also probably a case of me being maybe a little lazy. Maybe I should have been out there asking about what's out there. What does anybody have anything, they've read that they love, maybe I should have been a little more aggressive about that. But, you know enough about this that it's just extraordinarily time consuming to do it right. And it requires patience and focus and all your attention, not just once you start shooting, but even when you start, when you find something, And in
Yeah.
this case, in the case of Knox, I was really fortunate because it was already a really tight script. And in terms of rewrites, really, really rewriting anything was very limited. That's not to say that we didn't change a few things here and there, certainly, you do that anyway. But that part was easy. The script was always really good. And then I made certain decisions about what to remove from it, what I didn't, think was necessary, and how to possibly move the scenes away. And then I've got this, then when we were all done, it was coming together. It was looking really good, but I've got this wonderful editor now that I'm sure someone's going to grab her, and I'll never get to work with her again because she's really, really good. And she thought of stuff in the editing room. I've got to say, I'm pretty good at that, I think. But she thought of stuff I never would have thought of, and really worked.
Well, even the transitions between scenes, the dissolves, the music, it all lends to this kind of like feel. It's a real like vibe of a movie and a real blend of interesting different genres. For those that don't know, this is a tale of a hitman with dementia. I can't think of much worse occupations to be hit with. I mean, it's bad for everybody, but not the.
Yeah, because you could easily make a mistake.
I suppose. I suppose.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah. So it's curious to me, like, so you didn't write this, but obviously this fits your sensibilities. This is a mix of noir. There's humor in there. It's a character piece. Did it feel like, oh, once you read, did you read it as a potential directing assignment immediately, or was it potentially an acting gig?
No, it was an acting gig. It was sent to me by Michael Sugar, who's one of the producers of Spotlight, and Michael's produced a lot of stuff with Steven Soderbergh. And when I read it, I don't think he gave it to me on Spotlight. I forget when he laid it on me. He said, "Read this. Tell me what you think." And I read it and I said, "This is really good writing, and it's interesting. I wasn't ready for the twist in the end and all that." And he said, "Well, you interested in doing it? We could probably get this set up." And I said, "I don't know, maybe." And then I went off and did a job, I think, and came back, and all that time has passed, and I don't really remember. A lot of more time passed, and I picked it up and read it again, and we would check in now and then, he and I, about it, and it was just kind of there, sitting probably on my desk or on a shelf or something. But I'd check in, and then he'd say, I know you're getting ready to start this other thing. Do you see any time? And by the time I kind of came around and read it the second time, I said, I think the only way I want to do this is I want to direct it. I've thought about it, and I think I know how to do this. And it's a real solid script. And then that process started, and, okay, how would that work? And all of a sudden, we honestly pretty quickly found financing. That didn't really take that long. And then, of
Right.
course, do all that they do to set that up and work that out, which wasn't very involved in. And then it was like that, and so I just chose to do both, to take the role and direct it.
It must have been a joy to surround yourself with this company of actors. I mean, I mentioned a few of them, Marsden, Marsha Gay Harden. I think the first time you've worked with the great, I mean, come on, Al Pacino. To see you two share the screen is such a treat. For those that have been waiting to see Al Pacino eat Chinese food in a bathtub, the time has come. Here we are.
Yeah. And by the way, it wasn't in the script.
Of course not. Of course not.
No, I had the idea. I said, "What do you think? How you feel about eating Chinese food?" First of all, I wanted to be respectful and say, "Hey, I'm trying to think if that was even originally in the tub." I think it was. I think it was. And I said, I don't want to just assume that Al's comfortable with that. First of all, there's going to be issues because noise, water.
Right.
He's not 25 anymore, and I wanted to be respectful, and he was totally down with it. Totally down with it. He has this cool thing that you have to look pretty closely. His idea. He had we put the scar on him. It was his idea of where he had been shot in the past, like around his shoulder, between his chest and his shoulder, which I loved. It's pretty subtle, but I think you can see it. And then I think the Chinese thing was my idea, I'm pretty sure, but I can't really remember. And then that relationship with the woman that he has, who uh, uh, he's been with his partner, and that shot, of her doing her nails, that kind of, as I watched it, I said, how do you feel about maybe, what do you think you're doing your nails maybe while you're talking to him, So it's just, the more I hear myself talk about it, the more fun I remember. I
Well,
just love
nothing. Yeah, I mean, nothing makes me happier, honestly. I was gonna say nothing makes me happier, honestly, to hear of like those people that I grew up watching who still have that just passion and love for experimentation and acting into their 60s, 70s, and 80s. You hear the same stories. You obviously go back with Jack. You hear the stories about Jack Nicholson, who just like his last few films was just like, I love to act. Just the I'm here to act. I will do the reverse coverage too. I'm let me act.
yeah. And that's Al, he's a pro, he certainly has his system down,
Mm,
and he's very smart actually about it. He's realistic about how many hours,
sure.
and I'm extremely respectful of that. And also, he's right. He's very smart. Your work starts to fade at a certain point if you're too tired. And so we
Yeah.
had but honestly, the little adjustments we had to make that come with a guy like Al weren't big at all. And his team that he has, couldn't have been better. In fact, I felt really good when they left. He's got he brings an assistant, not just an assistant, but somebody who helps him out here and there. So there's, 3 or 4 folks, but they're really nice people and really efficient. And when they left on the final day, I was so flattered actually, because the woman who's kind of his main person said, you know what? This is the best film experience we've ever had as a team.
Come on.
Yeah,
That's meaningful. That's huge.
it was. And he's
I mean,
great. He's
yeah,
great.
he's great. It's great to see him in this. I mean, this is look, everybody's been touched by dementia, sadly, in our families, right? It's everywhere. My dad experienced a little bit of at the end. It's heartbreaking for all of us. Not to get too personal, but is there some resonance in your own personal life that you brought to this?
Fortunately not. I'm trying to think. Gee whiz, I'm fortunate not in the family, but certainly when my mom got older, it was a little bit, but she was kind of ridiculously sharp up into the end, though.
Amazing.
But then not so much, right there at the very end, like who is? And you're right. It's so, what's interesting about it is you know, there's I'm pretty sure I'm right about this. There's the spectrum of dementia, which can be different things for different people. And then there's, the autism spectrum, which is wide, wide, wide. And then you go, well, wait, does that include OCD? And what's within that, right?
Right.
So
Because we're all on that, I feel like. We're
yeah,
somewhere there. Like
no kidding. Honestly, I've been thinking about that a lot. I'll bet you that's a lot wider than we think it is. And
yeah.
versions of, certain personality types, and so and all the discovery. So this particular thing, which is Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, which when I read it, it was almost a no for me, because I thought, well, I don't know if this is going to be believable, really. I mean, I like the idea setup. So I quickly, you can do it in a second and a half now, Googled it and looked and read, and then started reading a little more. And then the writer, Greg, and I said, all right, Greg, now you can't make this movie if this is not accurate. He said it's absolutely accurate. And apparently this particular form of dementia is fast acting.
Right.
It moves at a rapid pace. And once I believed that, I said, okay, then I'm in. Then this can work. Another thing about this film that the way I've described it is, I'm sure you know it and you've played it. The game Jenga.
Yeah, sure.
The reason if I wasn't hesitant, I was very, very cautious about saying yes to it. I kept going through it and talking with everybody and said, does this hold up? Because I kept saying it's a Jenga movie, because it all has to work. Because if one part of the story doesn't work, don't make the movie. It just won't hold up.
Yeah.
So that was probably the biggest hurdle, and the thing I had to ride herd on, which was, is everybody still in on this? Do we know, are we being consistent? Is that working? Do we believe that? Is this part of the story holding up?
Yep.
And that's a tricky one. It's a little bit of a leap anyway, but not much.
It's funny though, isn't it? Because it's like it is it kind of honors the tradition of noir, the kind of like ticking time clock that is very familiar in noir, and it just like adds in this layer, which I admit, when I was watching it, I Googled the disease too. I'm like, this can't be real. I'm like, and then I pull up the Wikipedia entry. There it is.
Right.
But it does give this perfect device that is kind of familiar in these great kind of noir stories. Like, oh wait, now we have like a ticking clock. We have a day, a week, a month before all goes to hell, and it really works.
It has a lot of things in it, though. Sometimes I joke, I say it's a lot of things. Yeah, it is. I wanted to make. I guess I didn't even think about it being a noir movie when I started making it, and I said, yeah, it's noir, but I didn't. I wanted to make a noir movie, but not, be respectful of it, but it's not really. First of all, you can't do it any better than people have done it in the past, so there's that, but there's so many elements. Sometimes I joke around and say, it's also kind of a family film.
Yeah.
A relationship.
A fucked up family film. Yeah.
Yeah, like a family film. Yeah. And I'm glad to hear you catch, because there aren't many of them. I wanted a few more, but they didn't quite play. There are those kind of dark, funny things, because I don't know how you make any film with the possible exception of, Schindler's List or something,
We don't need the laugh break there. No,
no need for a young.
We're good.
Yeah, right. We're good. We're not here for the
but the whole detective storyline that's their
Nakamura was important for that, And so I really wanted, because in the script it made me laugh. Her character made me laugh a lot, and that she delivered. She's so sarcastic and such a smart ass. And the two of them together, her and John, oh man, they were great. They should go do their own movie together.
When you're at a family gathering and you feel the need to bend the truth to impress a loved one, an aunt, an uncle, yeah, the job's going great, yeah, the relationship's going great, you're bending the truth just to make it all more comfortable. That should not be the situation in your doctor's office, guys. You should not have to feel like you are cutting any corners. That's why our sponsor, ZocDoc, is so important. This is the place where you can find and book doctors who will make you feel comfortable and actually listen to you. And we're not talking about just a few doctors. They have tens of thousands of doctors with verified patient reviews, so you can make sure the vibes are all great and you're always comfortable with that very important person in your life. Yes, your doctor. With ZocDoc, you've got more options than you know. Plus, you can search by location, availability, and insurance, so there are literally no compromises here, because with ZocDoc, you've got all the options at your fingertips. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare highly rated in-network doctors near you and instantly book appointments with them online. If I needed a doctor, ZocDoc would be there for me. Go to ZocDoc.com/happysad, download the ZocDoc app for free, then find and book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/happysad. ZocDoc.com/happysad.
So since we're talking about your directing effort, if you'll indulge me, I'd love to talk about, you've worked with some of the greats, obviously, over your career, sometimes more than once. And I just want to talk about a few of them and how they may have influenced your acting and your eventual directing career. And going back, obviously, so much of the early work, 3 films in a relatively short period of time with Ron Howard.
Yeah.
Nothing made me feel older than when I heard Ron Howard turn 70 the other day. The perpetually young Ron Howard. How is this possible? Did you have confidence in him? Because this was Richie Cunningham directing. This was Happy Days Kid directing a film. What did you feel on the set?
100%. And I'm not just saying that in retrospect. I said it while I was doing it. I didn't get what he was so sure-handed and organized. And I guess I just don't think think like that. That whole thing, I remember people commenting on the Richie Cunningham thing. First of all, I knew what Happy Days was, and I'm sure I saw episodes of it, but I never watched a lot of it. So, but I was very aware of him and Henry and everyone, because, it was part of the, the culture really. So that would come up a lot. I remember like, oh, Richie Cunningham. And I never understood why people didn't. It was so obvious to me. I said, the man's an actor. He's playing a thing.
Right.
That's the role. I'm sure, and since I've got to know him, I was right. I said, he's got an entire life. Also a human being and a grown man, and he's this other thing. So that was I never even really looked at him like that. I never, and then just as far as his abilities, it was clear from the get-go. It was crystal clear,
Yeah.
And so, I like that. I love filmmaking for a lot of reasons, but one of them is it's the ultimate team sport. It's a team
Yeah.
effort. It doesn't work if you're not part of the team. And I've always liked that. I'm not a big fan of clubs, but I really like the concept of a team. And it's easy for me. I go, okay, here's my role. My role is this. His role is that. Her role is this. And so you say, well, this is my job, and he's the guy. He's ultimately it's the director, and like that. So I didn't think about that one way or another. And then we ended up getting along very well. I learned over the years that I'm pretty sure I'm right about this. I'd have to ask him and make sure I didn't make this up. That he and Brian Grazer, and I think especially Ron, kind of had to go to bat for me during as some of the guys, the people in the company who were making it were
This is for Night Shift for the first one.
yes,
Yeah.
Night Shift, right. Were concerned about what I was doing, going off script a lot and improvising and my behavior, and Ron said, absolutely, trust me, this is going to work. And I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. It was almost, I think there was a discussion of replacing me, and
Oh, wow.
yeah, I don't think I'm making that up. I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. And they said, no, we know what we're doing. We know what he's doing. Trust me, this is going to work. And Henry was great.
Yeah.
Henry got it. He knew how to roll with it.
Well, you have a nice history of that, and that segues well into Tim Burton. And obviously, we've talked about the casting in Batman and that whole lore about that. And I know we'll talk later this year more about the reuniting on Beetlejuice. I'm so excited. But I mean, Tim is many things. He's a visionary. He's brilliant. He's not necessarily the most articulate man, I would say, on the planet, or maybe not. Has he changed? Do you understand Tim Burton speak more now than you did 30 plus years ago?
Yes, and what's interesting is about that is I do, because the more you get to know somebody, you just know who they
Yeah.
are. My joke about Tim is I say I don't really don't know how old Tim is, but I would say in his entire life, I would doubt that he's ever completed more than 7 or 8 totally declarative sentences, with a noun, verb,
Exactly.
it's just not. What's interesting,
Yeah, if you looked at a transcript of what he's saying, it's like,
yes,
where is the end and beginning?
yes, and his mind is so creative and it's such an imagination and working so fast that it's very hard. I feel real confident in saying this. It's really hard for him. His mind is so far ahead of anything that
Right.
could come out of his mouth that I think he would have to slow down to do that. And by that
Sure.
time, there's another
We're on to the next. Yeah.
for the next, more and more and more, and he'd never catch up. But I'm glad you used the word articulate, actually, because he actually, I was talking about this, or I noticed this and mentioned it to someone. In an odd way, he's more articulate, at least to me.
Yeah.
But it depends on your definition of being articulate.
Okay.
As
Sure.
he's so now visually articulate, that the way he does things and shows things and the examples he uses, it's either that I kind of think a little like him as well, which I kind of do, but also I think knowing him and working with him a bunch of times, it's either just that I understand the language, or he actually is more a little more verbally articulate. Articulate. It sounds like we're being, critical, and I know you're not.
No, no, of course not. Yeah.
Not at all. But and by the way, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to work on that kind of. It's however you describe language. His language is his language.
Well, just one Beetlejuice. I guess it's not Beetlejuice 2, it's Beetlejuice, technically speaking. One question about that, if you'll indulge me. The fact that I've been bothering Winona about this for over a decade, just like, when's it happening? I talked to you about this nearly a decade ago, and you were wary. You pointed out, look, in the original Beetlejuice isn't even in the main character, so we have to make sure that's right. How did you guys crack it? Was it immediate? Was it an easy yes for you? And what was it like stepping back onto set after all these years?
It was a long time, a long, long, long time. Years of Tim and I discussing, dropping it, going up to the thing, say, should we? Then it was a no. The first was a like yes, and it was a no, and then it was like, I don't think so. And then I said, well, maybe if, and then would talk again occasionally. But we were very, very, very cautious about even talking about it to anybody. I just didn't want, but he didn't want to bring it up, and I didn't want anything in the way. We're very similar in this respect. We go, I actually can't hear too many voices right now. I just have to think about this, and the only person I want to think about this particular thing, the only person about which I want to speak about this was him. And so we pick it up now and then, and then frankly, there was a script or two, I think, and that didn't. It just wasn't it, because it's really hard to write, because it's just not me, going off and riffing. It's actually him. There's certain things he can't explain, and it's really hard for him to explain. So then when you see it and you show up, you go, oh, I get it. I see what you were talking about, because he has an idea, but it's really too hard for him to explain to you. And then you see it, you go, oh, got it. I see it. Okay.
Right.
There are a couple things in this film that when I read it, I thought, so we finally got a script, and I said, yeah, I think we got to do this. There were a couple things that, to be honest, I read and I went, oh, I love this idea, but I am afraid that's maybe slowing down. So some of my notes were, I love it. You sure you want to do that? Because doesn't it slow down? Blah, 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 something.
Right.
When I showed up and we shot one of those particular things I was concerned about, I went, oh my God, how do you not do this? The scene is too great. First of all, visually, someone has to photograph this. This is just tremendous. So it's like that. But anyway, down the road, I'm sure you and I will meet up for all that. But it's, I can't tell you how good everyone is at it. I mean, Catherine, if you thought she was funny in the first one, double it.
That's saying a lot.
Yeah.
I'm curious, I want to mention Inarritu, that collaboration, that performance in Birdman is so amazing. You must have responded. And since in the work he's done before and after, the thing that always strikes me about his work is this naked, brave honesty, turning the lens on himself. You see it in Bardo after Birdman. You see it in the stuff earlier. Is that what you kind of resonated? Did that leap off the page? Oh man, this guy is bearing his soul. And if a director is that fearless, I want to go there with him.
But fearless is it. I'm not. I don't think I ever thought about him bearing a soul first. I'd seen Babel, and I had seen the movie before that,
21 Grams and
Amores Perros or no, yeah, Amores Perros.
Yeah,
and I was just stunned.
Yeah,
and I just thought, who is this guy? This is just bold, man, and really interesting. So I think it was that. I think it's how bold he is that I admire, and his intelligence and his willingness to really be committed,
I find it very curious that at the age you were when you worked with Birdman, with Inarritu, Tom Cruise is apparently about to work with him at basically the exact same age. And I find it very interesting because I love the Mission Impossible movies, but I also want to see what someone like Inarritu can do with that career, with that, that talent.
Me too. That I didn't know that. I am right there with you, because that would really be interesting. That's an interesting combo. And
Yeah.
Cruise, I don't know Tom very well at all, but I know him a little bit. But from what I know, he's extraordinarily professional
Right.
and committed and disciplined. And that's going to be interesting because that's you pretty much have to be
Yeah.
when you're Alejandro,
Uh,
that'll really
uh,
be that combo. I
yeah,
think that's
100.
exciting.
The stuff you've done in the last like 9, 10 years. Again, I mean, Dope Sick, by the way, one of my favorite projects. You and Caitlin Dever break my heart in that unbelievable. Uh,
That-
she
She's
is the best. Yeah, she's one of those that's going to be with us for a while. That's yeah.
yeah, yeah, and like a really good girl, really good woman, young woman. Just I just dig her. I'm a fan.
Let's talk about one of my favorite subjects. That's food. And that's why we're talking about Factor today. They deliver ready-to-eat meals that make eating better every day easy. So wherever tomorrow takes you, be ready with pre-prepared, chef-crafted, and yes, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. Plus, the variety, guys, is fantastic. Over 35 different options a week to choose from. Whether you're on a keto diet, calorie smart, vegan, veggie, whatever, they've got you covered, and there's even more to enjoy with over 55 nutrition-packed add-ons that help you make your weekly meal planning even more delicious. The 2-minute meals are invaluable. You can fuel it fast with Factor's restaurant quality meals that are ready to eat and heat whenever you are. Plus, I am a snacker, guys, and they provide snacks, smoothies, and more. Discover a wide variety of easy options for the entire day, like breakfast, midday bites, and more. It is the perfect solution if you're looking for fast, upscale options done easily. So head to factormeals.com/happysad50 and use that code happysad50 to get 50% off. That's code happysad50 at factormeals.com/happysad50 to get 50% off today.
You've also, gone back into the superhero stuff. Was Spider-Man Homecoming fun for you? Was Vulture a fun character? Was that? I mean,
Yeah.
people often cite, and I watched it again. That scene in the car. No superhero costumes, just you two. A lot is unspoken. It's one of the best scenes in a Marvel movie in some time.
Oh, wow, that's interesting you say that, because I'm far from a superhero or Marvel aficionado. I need to be educated, but I always thought that was really cool, and that whole idea. That's a great scene too, and she's so. I also dig her.
Yeah.
She's a really nice girl, and just she just has this thing, man. You mentioned two of my favorites, those two, but yeah, that kid's great, and that scene was really weird. And what's great about that role to me is once again, no superpowers.
Right.
Guy who said, I've made a decision in my life. I'm going to make stuff, or I'm going to figure out how to do this, which, it just gives you that extra thing to play with,
Yeah. Now, here's a question. You did pop up in this like post-credit thing in Morbius. It was a little confusing. Did you know what what was even happening, what it was leading
No.
to? What?
No idea. None. Zero. I mean, they said, okay. And even they couldn't quite explain it. He said, look, let me just kind of tell you. And I go, okay, I really don't quite know what you're talking about, or even who some of these people are. And he said, okay, let me explain. But it was complicated because they were, obviously looking down the road and said, here's how it's going to work. This is what's going to happen here. And I go, okay, I'm in. Let's just try it. But then, and he's such an interesting dude. Like in the scene,
Jared, you mean? Yeah.
yeah, he's very nice toward the end day when he finally talked to me, and I totally I got it the minute I showed up, and I said, oh, I get what he's doing. I'm going to steer clear.
Yeah, he was in character. He was apparently method.
Yeah, very, very. Yeah, which I don't make fun of that.
Whatever works. Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah.
We obviously, it was a treat to see you pop up as Batman again. I'm a little sad, and we're never going to see. I'm more than a little sad. We're never going to see Batgirl. Apparently, did you ever see Batgirl?
No, saw parts of it, I think, but it was a good done deal. I was just reading about this morning something else. Oh yeah, there's a big article about a lot of that stuff. You know,
Yeah,
the cancellation of things. I guess Will Forte's movie's canceled.
right.
He's really funny,
One
man.
of the funny. Yeah.
Man, so
So
funny.
do you feel like your time in Batman now is like officially done? Like you did it, you got a chance to go back into the cowl, or would you be open at this point?
Yeah, I don't think about it much. You don't never say never. I don't think everything's dependent upon something else, I guess.
Yeah. Is there a director that's gotten away over the years? You worked with some of the greats. Is there like, Coppola, the Coens, like is there
Oh,
been one that
of course, yeah. And um God, some of those guys, like the guy who did Gamora, the not the series, but Gamora the film, and
Yep.
then those brothers. What are those names? Sorry, man, I wasn't
No,
thinking
it's
about
all good.
guys who did yeah, these were movies that were, long ago I saw, but you always kind of collect these people in the back of your head and go, boy, that is really interesting work. But you never really know until, you actually meet them because there's not necessarily, what you're thinking is what they're thinking.
Right.
But I had a chance to work with, even, a guy was my friend and is so organized and thoughtful and precise is John Hancock, when I did
The
Founder.
Founder, sure.
Founder's a great movie.
It is. It is. He's an underrated filmmaker. If you look at his filmography, there's some real
Yeah.
gems in there.
You're not
Yeah.
kidding. He's got a
Yeah.
real good, he's got a real nice visual sense too. And because a lot of times, let's be honest, a lot of times writers are not. It always made sense to me. Actors tend to be good directors.
Right.
They just kind of tend to.
Tom McCarthy. Look no further. There you go.
Yeah, 100%. But
All right.
yeah.
I was going to say, we'll end today with our happy, sad, confused, profoundly random questions for you, Michael. Here are a few. Do you collect anything? What do you collect?
Oh, I do kind of not like as this is my thing. I collect these things. But I do have a tendency to I find myself like ha kind of over the years kind of having grabbed things. I have I don't have the vintage fishing gear that I would like to have because that is really hard to find. And
Okay.
these little niche things that you think, there are people who collect everything, it turns out, you
Yeah.
think, typewriter keys,
Oh, yeah.
like, all kinds of things. No, but I don't have a real like specific collection, but I do collect little odd things here and there. I'll be out when I'm out, at the ranch or out hiking and I'll find things. I've got a thing that I found I've got a few things I found in rivers actually. I dragged an old iron tire wheel and a wagon wheel out of a river and saved that. And then I've got this beautiful staghorn, like about this long, broken off. I found in a river in Scotland. And it was so beautiful. It's kind of, there's something laying in the water, and I looked over and I picked it up, and it was this old staghorn that had been shed. So,
Amazing.
yeah. And I love stuff like that because I'll walk by my hallway and I'll see it and I'll remember how beautiful it was there. Yeah.
Do you ever still get mistaken for another actor? Was there one at a certain point in your career that you were often mistaken for?
So there's no mistake. Oh, wait. There was one point this was really funny, and now I can't remember who they thought it was because it was like so far off. It was like so weird and far off. Because early on, when I was starting out, and I was in a Second City workshops, and I actually took over for somebody in a show a couple times when Second City was starting out here. Uh, when I was in the workshops, all these people, Betty Thomas and Candy and Joe Flack, all those guys who would say, you sure you don't know Bill Murray? You should know Bill Murray. He says, you and Bill Murray. So this is like, and early on, I remember there was a comparison, but I don't think it was physical so much as just,
You guys should share some space, some physical space, which they're right, by the way. That makes sense.
yeah, early on, I think, but everybody eventually becomes what they become, it gets all pretty cleared up.
Well, last thing for you. Worst note a director has ever given you. Does anything stick out?
Really good question. Well, sometimes you think it's not a good note, and then you go, oh, that's a really good note. And generally, often that is faster.
Right.
Everybody.
You're like, really? That's all you need? Okay. And then
Yeah,
you go, oh,
right.
fuck. That was the way to do it. That was it.
Exactly. That's what the fun thing is. You direct people, especially actors. It's fun because you just sit back and go, oh, that's interesting. I see where he's going. I kind of like that. And then I'll go. I use like in KNOX, I use examples a lot. I go, how when it's kind of like, and then I'll say something. I'll go, you know what I mean? And they'll go, think I know what you mean. I say, okay, just kind of do that or think about that. It's just so fun. I feel like doing it again. But anyway, it's really good. I mean, I really like this movie, and this cast is fantastic.
No, honestly, man, it's a great piece of work. I was, like I said, I've been privileged enough to watch it twice. It holds up on a second viewing too. It's got some amazing performances, and it is that you do tread that.
James Marsden, how good is he?
So good. Not the best father. I know your son is very important to you in real life. This is not the father-son relationship of Michael Keaton in real life, but it's a good one. And yeah, James is fantastic. It's a treat to see.
Little pooch you have in the back there too. What's his or her?
Oh, thank you. That's Lucy. That's my little Lucy.
Well, yeah.
Do you have a dog now, Michael? Here's my next dream is to do a celebrity dog talk show. Just hang out with.
That's a great idea. I have 4.
Okay. You're on board, whether you know it or not. You just signed on.
My latest one is named Puddin'.
I love it. I hope to see you in person, and I hope to see Puddin' one day. Congratulations on KNOX Goes Away. Everybody should check it out. Thanks, man. Honestly, the time is very, very meaningful to me. Thank you, man.
Thanks, Josh.
And so ends another edition of Happy, Sad, Confused. Remember to review, rate, and subscribe to this show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm a big podcast person. I'm Daisy Ridley, and I definitely wasn't pressured to do this by Josh.